It's 5:46 and it's confession time. We have a smart speaker to give away. Mavis is going to get today's smart speaker. Mavis, thank you very much indeed for today's tale. If you've got a confession, you send it to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. Live from the pub in the Saloon Bar, Susie with today's drink of the day. What do you have?
San Pellegrino Limonata is what I'm drinking, so I thought, why not share that? Very refreshing.
Is that in one of those tall, thin tins? It sounds like they were sponsored by San Pellegrino. I like that drink. Okay, yeah. That's very good. And a safe way to start the week.
Exactly, and a lot of soft drinks now come in these skinny, tall cans.
Being
very
skinny
nice.
And tall has a lot going for it, I have to say.
So it does.
So today's tale, then. Now, I should say, not really quite sure what to say about today's, except that it might upset you.
Oh, really?
Well,
okay.
We'll see as we get. It does feature something which is not normally allowed to happen.
Okay, it's not food.
In a confession, it's not food. No.
Okay,
but you'll see what I mean.
Right.
As I feel
intriguing.
A little bit nervous about this one. Simon and the Collective, says Mavis. You may recognise this email, as I have sent in a confession for my husband before.
Oh.
You may recall the incident with the missing toes and the distraught Irish girl read out about a month ago.
Yes, the one in the sea.
Yes, exactly. And he made her think that he'd lost a toe
in the sea. Yeah.
Because of the crabs or something like that.
It was the fishes.
The fishes, that's right.
Yeah.
The fishes had eaten his toe. Anyway, after reading this out on air, my husband has finally talked me into writing to you with my confession. Or rather, the most embarrassing moment of my entire life. It will become apparent why I am reluctant to share this, but my husband can be very persuasive. So here goes. My sorry tale goes back 10 years, whilst holidaying in Tenerife. Firstly, I would like to point out that I've always classed myself as an intelligent lady. However, I sometimes lack his common sense. Right. Anyway, halfway through our holiday, we decided to partake in a trip to the local zoo. We don't usually bother with trips, but this one sounded great, so
okay,
be a nice day out.
Trips.
I don't want to go on a trip. When we arrived at the zoo, we paid our admission fee and we wandered into the park. We then came upon a large pond of fish. Yes, my confession involves fish as well, as did my husband's. Anyway, to the left of the pond, there stood a sign which read, and I quote, "Throw €1 in the fish's mouth and make a wish." Oh, I thought, all right, I'll have a go at this. How hard can it be? My purse came out and I managed to rustle up €5 coins. This is where my story takes an embarrassing turn. I stood at the edge of the water, euros in hand. When the live fish came up for air, I positioned myself and I took aim. I was trying to throw the euro in the fish's mouth, as it said in the sign. Somewhat subdued, the fish made a hasty retreat. What with it having coins being thrown at it. Undeterred and determined, I then waited for the next one to come up for air. Again, I took aim, but again missed. When my euros had run out, remember I had 5 of them, I turned to my partner to ask for some more euros, but it appeared as though he had disappeared. Instead, I was surrounded by holidaymakers looking at me in astonishment. And it was at this point that a gentleman tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Well, señorita."
Oh, my goodness.
I'm going to drop that now.
No.
Go on.
Señorita.
He said, "You see the big pink plastic fish? The one with the huge open mouth?
Yeah.
Right there in the middle of the pond? I think that's the one that you should be throwing the coins at, not the live fish."
No.
By this point, I believe I had traumatized the helpless fish. And I am ashamed to say, I'm afraid one of them might have gone to fishy heaven.
Oh, right.
As it floated on the top of the pond, lifeless. Fish plus coins,
No, they don't go.
I have never felt so embarrassed in my life, and I could not believe that I actually missed the enormous pink fish with the open mouth in the middle of the pond. When I finally found my husband, who was by now propping up the bar, I asked him why he walked away and left me, and his response was, Are you joking? I wasn't standing around watching you make a complete fool of yourself. My reply to him will not be repeated on live radio. I mean, he could have just pointed out your mistake, Mavis, I'd have thought. Throughout the day as we walked through the zoo, people were pointing at me and muttering under their breath, "That's her." How do you say that in Spanish?
Eso es ella. Eso es ella.
Eso es ella. They were pointing at me and they were saying, "Eso es ella." What did they say?
Eso es ella.
That's what I said.
That's what you used.
That's what they were saying.
Exactly the same.
Obviously, we didn't see the whole day out at the zoo, and instead of waiting for the coach that brought us, we took a taxi back to our apartment. Because a hasty retreat was the only thing to do. When I have told the select few this story, they cannot quite believe it, but rest assured it is true and something I will never speak of again now that I've told you. So I'm seeking forgiveness for not only the holiday makers who had to witness this, but also the poor fish who were unfortunate to be at the end of my Euro-throwing antics. I mean, what an astonishing tale that is. Mavis, how could you miss the big pink fish with the gaping gob where it says, "Throw the Euros in here"? P.S. As you read my husband's confession out, we're already in receipt of a smart speaker. Could I have a drive-time mug instead?
Oh.
I suppose there's
Bending the rules?
I suppose there's no reason why not.
Oh, right.
Okay, so a mug can be yours, I think. Sister Susie, anyway.
Well, Mavis, I was kind of with you for a little while because, you know, maybe they didn't make it obvious. You know, if you couldn't see the big, giant pink fish, maybe there was a reason for that. But one of the fishies might have died, and for that reason, I can't forgive you because that's just mean.
I mean, the fish could have gone better. Could have been asleep or something.
Could have been asleep.
Okay,
That's
maybe
true.
it was asleep.
Brother from another gutter.
I mean, you know, the fish, at some point, you know, fish shuffle off, don't they? So I don't think really we can blame Mavis for that.
I think we can, actually.
I don't think we can because, you know, fish, they tend to die. But I was going to come out against Mavis on this because it's quite obvious. You're not meant to be throwing it at the fish, the live fish. There was obviously going to be a big plastic one that you're supposed to toss your coin into the mouth of. But I'm going to forgive just for the Spanish accent. That alone, I think, merits forgiveness.
Excellent.
So yes, I forgive.
It was very good.
Thank you. I like to think so as well. So, do you forgive Mavis, yes or no? On the text 61054, first word is Simon. Email. And tonight's confession, just before 6 o'clock, sent in by Mavis, a sorry tale of a zoo visit at Tenerife, and the sign that said, "Throw your Euros in the fish's mouth." There was a big pink plastic fish.
Yeah.
She missed that and tried to throw the coins into the actual real live fish's mouth with awkward consequences for the fish. Anyway, the people's verdict is in, and it's like this.
So Craig Marshall in Mansfield says, forgiven, not really fair for them to just say chuck Euros in the fish when there are several fish in the pond, real or not. Julie says, not forgiven. She should have had more common sense than to think fish would eat Euros and survive.
Yes.
Did she think she was on some fairground attraction where you win a goldfish? And finally, Hannah and Jim in Worcester say, forgiven, just for the hilarity factor. I haven't heard Matt and Susie laugh so much, and your Spanish accent had me and my husband howling with laughter.
Well, let's try that. This is like an online Spanish course.
Yes, it is. Yes.
So you say the line, then everyone at home says the line, and then I'll say it.
Eso es ella.
Eso. I think that was pretty good, actually. Apparently not.
No.
Anyway, so your confession, maybe involving Spanish of any kind. Maybe it involves a trip to the zoo. Maybe it involves fish. Whatever confession you have, if you want to swap it for a smart speaker, or in this case, a mug, send it to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. If you got a confession for us, we'd love to hear it and swap it for a smart speaker. If we use it, you send it to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. Here's the nice,
Very smooth.
nice mix from Irene Cara into our confessions music. Here we go. This comes from Philomena. Thank you, Philomena. Simon and cohorts. My confession goes back to 2000, when my job moved and I relocated with. I just need to absolutely make sure that I've edited this appropriately.
Oh, now's the time to check.
And I relocated with it. I love my job and my colleagues and was quite upset when my company announced that they were relocating. And when my husband agreed to go, we both went. We relocated for my job. However, once I was working in the new place, it was a different story. Although the job was the same, and I had recruited a pleasant assistant, my new manager was not nearly as nice as my previous manager. She only wanted men working for her, who she called her harem. And
What?
She treated all other women in her department as rivals. This was quite strange for a married woman, although she soon started an affair with one of the sales managers and moved in with him. Anyway,
What is going on?
she still kept her harem and continued with her animosity towards all the other women, me included. You'll see now why.
Yeah, double check we're not mentioning the firm
Or the area.
or anything.
Or anything. Okay.
Lawyers.
It took her 2.5 years, but eventually, when redundancies were announced, I was the second person to be made redundant. I was more than a little bit annoyed, as I had a well-paid job and had relocated for the company and had worked really hard to make my department efficient. However, on the day that I was given the news, I was asked to leave the company for an hour while my colleagues were told, and then I was allowed to return to clear my desk and say my goodbyes, which I did. However, as previously mentioned, I had done a lot of work for the company, and most of the documentation was written on Word on my PC. And therefore, under the pretense of sending goodbye emails, I password protected all of the documents that I had so painstakingly researched and written, and I took home with me all of the hard copies that I had.
Of course.
Now, this was 2002, Father Simon, and the password protection on Word was different to how it is now, because until you put in the correct password, you could not read a single word of what had been written. I wonder how many other people did something similar. Lots of the passwords were swear words. And then Philomena says, for example.
Oh,
and then,
no, it won't.
And then gives me... But I ran out of suitable words, so I just typed 20 or so random letters as a password, something that would be impossible to trace. Unfortunately, that didn't work because you had to type it twice to confirm it. So I resorted to practicing my Spanish vocabulary. There you go, there is some Spanish.
Here we go.
I had the most excellent, impossible to crack Spanish phrase. So let's just pick one. Give me a Spanish phrase.
Eso es ella. Let's go back to that.
Eso es ella. Okay, there you go. That, no one is ever going to... And then put, like, 2002, exclamation mark, capital letter, Brian.
Yeah.
Okay. Brian's got nothing to do with this.
No, there's no Brian.
So, anyway, eventually I said my goodbyes, with the exception of 2 people, and left. Well, Brunhilde, the human resources manager,
Brunhilde.
who I had been quite friendly with, promised me that I would be given good references if any company approached them, so I wasn't too worried, as I was well qualified and a good worker. However, she lied. People do not trust human resources staff as they're two-faced.
What?
They have to do as the bosses tell them and be nice to staff at the same time. She said that she would keep in touch to make sure that I was okay. Why? No. A few days later, she phoned me at home on the pretense of keeping in touch, but after a bit of small talk, she asked me what the password was to my files, and I replied I'd forgotten in the first place, and anyway, I'd thrown them all away when I cleared out my desk. She said, What do you mean by that? So I replied that every file had a different password. She gulped and said goodbye. I know that I did not get good references from them because I asked a friend to apply for a reference and it was rubbish. But they didn't get their files either. I'm not really asking for absolution. I'm just warning your listeners not to trust human resources.
Hang on.
And if you live in Name of Town Redacted and have a female boss called Name of Boss Redacted, be afraid. Be very afraid. Yours sincerely, a very happily retired, let's call her Philomena.
Yeah.
Anyway, so, with, I suppose with suitable apologies to people in human resources, it's just one person's opinion. I'm sure there are many estimable people in human resources. Is that enough balance?
Well, yeah.
Anyway, Sister Susie.
Well, I don't really know what to say about this one, Philomena, but, like, you know, I feel like your boss wasn't very nice, but I also think you didn't like your boss. You didn't like the human resources person, so maybe the problem wasn't with the other people, maybe the problem was with you. And you were a bit sneaky getting your friend to apply for a reference to see what they'd say about you. I just don't think I can forgive you because I feel like you were also a little bit sneaky.
I think it feels like rather splendid revenge.
Yes.
But anyway,
Gotta be honest.
Brother Matthew.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to forgive. I mean, this is clearly Philomena venting a little bit. Things didn't quite work out at this firm, and so she decided, you know what? Think you can do without me? Think again, sunshine. I'm putting passwords on all my words.
But what about the documents?
And yeah, everything. It doesn't matter. And also, by the way, HR, care to have a look at the boss who's calling the rest of the staff a harem? Is that okay, is it? Dealing with the passwords before the harem? Think not.
Moving in with one of the sales managers.
Off with the salesman.
It's a den of iniquity.
What's going on at this
It's a moral
firm?
cesspit.
Yeah, get the lawyers. Philomena, definitely forgiven. Well done. One of the best we've done that. Very funny.
Okay, so it's the people's verdict, please. Do you forgive Philomena? Yes or no? On the text, it's 61054, and you could start your message with Simon. Thank you very much indeed. 61054, first word is Simon. The small matter of the people's verdict on Philomena, who earlier confessed to having got, well, she basically relocated, being asked to relocate by her firm, and then fell out with her boss, and then got sacked or was made redundant, and then took revenge by basically changing putting password protection on all her documents. And then when Human Resources got in touch, she said she'd forgotten. And she had all the hard copies. Anyway, it was a very fine confession from Philomena. Here comes the verdict.
Yes, this is the biggest reaction we've had to a confession, and everyone is forgiving. Kaylee Williams in Leicester, forgiven. I've done the exact same thing when I left a horrible job. Perfect way to leave the office in turmoil, but they only work it out once you're long gone. Sophie says, not only forgiven with admiration, but saluted. Have taken tips and will be password protecting from this day forward myself. Fran Young, forgiven. That's the funniest one yet. Could not get out of the car on my drive before you'd finished. And finally, Anonymous, for a reason, says, forgiven. I walked out of a certain supermarket with just socks and underpants on to a cheer from all the drivers at Sheffield.
Really?
Yep.
Wow. Okay. Leaving job confessions, revenge confessions, obviously within the law.
Obviously.
Don't break the law. Human Resources, we'd like to hear from you. Confessions, please. You send them to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. Greatest Hits Radio, and it's 5:46. Let's play this music here. And just check in with producer Susie, who is producing today from the Saloon Bar.
Hello.
I believe, of Bristol's finest pub. What is our drink of the day today, by the way?
Well, I'm going with something special today. I'm going with a whiskey to celebrate that there's a first whiskey that's been distilled in Bristol this week for the first time in 80 years, which is very exciting. So Circumstance Distillery have done a whiskey. And yeah, I thought, why not? Let's have a whiskey and celebrate that.
What's it called?
It's called, it's the Circumstance is the distillery, and the whiskey is just their single grain whiskey by Circumstance.
Okay.
That's what it says on the tin.
A bit early for the malt.
A little. I mean, come on.
But good to know.
Well, maybe we could keep it. Drink of the day, but maybe not till later on.
A bit later
Yes.
on. Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. So here's today's confession, which comes from Scorpion.
Oh,
I would say
Scorpion.
the only warning I would say is does contain attitudes from the 1970s.
Okay.
Okay, so it's a promising start. Simon, this confession contains military humour.
Oh, dear.
Not always a big hit on the civilians, but hear me out. Judge not, lest ye be judged. Matthew chapter 7, verse 1. So, as this has to do with the military, Father Simon, the confession should actually be heard by a courts-martial, which immediately promotes you to at least a general. Sounds pretty good. And your entourage to at least colonels.
I'll have that.
Ooh,
So,
nice.
General Sir Simon Melchett, Mayo, CDM and Bar. Shall we proceed? Okay, Scorpion, thanks. It's the 1970s.
All right.
In BAOR, British Army of the Rhine. We're at the headquarters, and they would deploy into the field for 2 weeks or so, once a year. The minions deployed first to set up the HQ area. So HQ, obviously, headquarters. Do I need to... Anyway, so us minions were deployed first to set up the headquarters areas, the HQ areas.
Yeah.
And this would be the cookhouse, officers' mess, sergeant's mess, quartermaster's store, the armory, and the workshop areas. The minions were the likes of me, Horseman, Foggy, Ginger.
Oh dear.
Bob the Butcher, Spider Richards, Badger and Digger.
Have you had to change
Digger.
all of that?
I did change them, yes. There were many
I like
more
Digger.
that I can't remember. They sound like a good crowd to me.
Yeah, they do.
Anyway, to cut a long story short, this was the time before Portaloos, Father Simon.
Oh, right.
Before porta potties,
Yeah.
as our friends across the pond would call them. We had to dig our own, the way nature intended. Some for the officers, some for the sergeants, and some for the other ranks. They were made up of a trench with a hessian. I suppose this is inappropriate for... now I
you
come
bring
to
it
think
up.
about
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
If you're eating. Anyway, they were made up of a trench
Yeah.
with a hessian surround, a thunderbox with a toilet seat attached to the top, of course, and toilet rolls. This is high-tech stuff, you must agree. Now, it's about this time that the hierarchy decided to introduce the WRAC, the RAC, the Women's Royal Army Corps, to the field. All the ladies did a sterling job.
Okay,
Scorpion,
I mean, come on.
in every field that they worked in. Bless them all,
Right.
says Scorpion. I'm just.
Yeah.
Anyway, one of the linemen, known as Trousers, said,
Trousers.
Trousers.
who joins Foggy, Ginger, Bob the Butcher, Spider Richards, Badger and Digger and Horseman. Anyway, Trousers says to me, I've had an idea. Let's put a loudspeaker in one of the thunderboxes.
How did this get through?
So we went along with the plan. It was quite an operation to find a speaker small and resilient enough for the job, but that's what the army is for. A loudspeaker was found and the wiring was completed. Sure enough, the headquarters arrived, and it wasn't long before our first victim came into play. She approached the latrine area, dropped her webbing outside. Webbing is what our soldiers put our weapon magazines, water bottle, mess tins, cleaning kit and the likes in, just to get it clear.
Yeah.
And she disappeared into the latrine. Timing is everything. We gave her a couple of seconds to adjust her dress, as clearly, we had to get this right.
Yeah.
Then over the speaker came...
Oi, you up there? We haven't finished yet.
Well, there was an almighty scream. She came out at high speed, readjusting her uniform as she ran. As you can guess, it only worked a couple of times before we had our ears tweaked by the Sergeant Major. Shut up, shut up, shut up. Who told us that he wouldn't have gossip in the jungle, and we all got extra guard duties. And so, sir, I put you in the panel. Our antics were done in the sense of humour that was common at the time.
Yeah.
The RAC were an asset and a credit to the British Army. I can only apologise for our behaviour and hope to be forgiven after 50-odd years. Well, okay, so, the thing to mention here is it's a military confession which has made it on air.
Yeah, that is amazing. Very rare.
Because they often do. But Scorpion, thank you very much indeed for today's tale. The loudspeaker in the loo. What do we make of that, Sister Susie?
Well, I don't know, Scorpion. You said in the confession that's what the army's for, was finding a tiny, tiny speaker. I'm not sure that's what the army is for, is it?
Is it not?
It's not really, is it? It is absolutely ridiculous, and I just wouldn't do it. And I don't forgive you, because what you're supposed to be have proper jobs, not playing around.
Okay, no forgiveness. Scorpion, let's see what the brother from another guy
Well,
makes
I
of
mean,
this.
you have to admire the ingenuity to be able to put a loudspeaker into a thunderbox, because I've never done that, and I'm not sure I'd know how to.
No.
So I think they deserve some credit there. But the reason I'm going to forgive is just because of the person called Trousers. If you're going to have someone called Trousers in your confession, I am going to forgive. Well done.
You're a pushover.
I am. And Ain't Half Hot Mum reference in there as well.
There was.
Fabulous.
So, let's see what the People's Verdict makes of that. It's a very interesting tale from Scorpion. The People's Verdict is due... Oh, beg your pardon.
Another bell.
The People's Verdict, please, on 61054. First word is Simon. Do you forgive Scorpion, yes or no? We are compiling the People's Verdict as we speak. Just a few moments ago, just before we left at the 5 o'clock hour, we had a confession from Scorpion, a 1970s military humour confession. There aren't that many of them. Anyway, it involved the thunderbox being placed in a loudspeaker being placed in a thunderbox in a latrine, and then...
Oi, you up there? We haven't finished yet.
That was basically what was going on, and they got away with it a couple of times before the Sergeant Major clocked it and stopped it. And here's the people's verdict.
So Andy in Wigan says, forgiven. I think it would be fair if Scorpion had placed a speaker in a male thunderbox just to even things up a bit, but it's got to be done. Noel says, forgiven. I served in BAOR at that time, and this prank was mild in the extreme. I fear
Really?
you may now receive an avalanche of military confessions, which you could never broadcast.
Yes.
And finally, Tracy in Portsmouth says, as an ex-REN, Women's Royal Naval Service, this great confession reminds me of many situations in Hong Kong back in '83, like the time when we were due a VIP visit and a red carpet and lots of tropical plants appeared in the foyer. Unfortunately, a couple of the young sailors decided that these plants and the red carpet would be better on our 19th floor. A few sailors the next day were in a tad amount of trouble.
Well, let's see what happens. If you would like to swap your confession for a smart speaker, send it to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk.